G'day everyone, welcome back to another Load Dice Plays video. Continuing on this one with the Hydra tactics card review. On this one though, we're going to try to shotgun through 2 tactics cards instead of the normal one, just because I feel like these next two are going to be a little bit less interesting. They are still good in quotation marks. They're not the bad ones, but they are a bit more straightforward, so I don't think they're going to take as much time to review. So the first one I want to bring up is Inevitable Betrayal. So just run through the terms and conditions of this one real quick. It's played during the cleanup phase, before you score victory points, which is very relevant because that's what this card is all about. An allied Hydra card plays it. It costs 8 power. All right, so that's a lot of power. So that costs 8 power. Choose an enemy character within 2, contesting a secure token. The chosen character now counts as one of your characters for contesting secure tokens this round. So let's just look at this holistically and just think about how it's going to work on the board. You're playing, say, Infinity Formula. You've got one of your characters on there, one of your opponent's characters on there. You're contesting it. You're both going to score 0. Someone can spend 8. All of a sudden, that character now counts as one of yours, and you get a VP. That's a very simple one. The other side of the coin is they could have 2 enemy characters on it and 1 friendly. One of your friendly characters plays 8. Gets to count one of those 2 as a friendly character for you, and now instead of your opponent scoring 1 point, you now score 1 point. So a bit of a 2-point swing there. That's probably the most basic, like, this is what this card does. I think a lot of people were very quick to think of the best case scenario for this one, which is obviously going to be Gamma. There's a lot of potential for you to double walk someone who happens to have 8 power at the end of the turn, end the round, have 8 power on them, play this card, and then score 3 VPs. The interesting thing with that one though is that's already a bit of a thing with anyone who can double walk and throw for, say, 2 or 3 power. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. Like, it's not something that's out of the ordinary, being able to score a backgammon very quickly and easily if you have something like a throw or some sort of superpower that pushes everyone away. This one is very in your face though, and I think it does telegraph your plan if you're playing on a gamma secure. If you have this in your 5, your opponents have to be very aware of it pretty much at all times. They're going to have to look at it and go, well, I'm going to need 2, maybe 3 people on my back gamma, or you just kind of go, at some point in the game, maybe I'm just going to give it up. So there's a little bit of back and forth specifically on Gamma for this card. But I think outside of that, the 1 point that you get from it, the 1 point swing, maybe a 2-point swing, isn't going to be that big a deal. Let's look at this quickly for a sec in regards to the secures that I think I'm going to bring in my Hydra list and how I think it's going to affect those, which is, like I've spoken about before, Mayor Fisk and Terrigen. So that's 2 secures where they're worth 2 points each, so they actually can be they can be considered a fast scoring secure. So if you have something along the lines of, say, your Hydra Troopers and then Zemo just doing a double long move to the other side, and then using Zemo and the Hydra Troopers, and then spending 8 power to flip and unexpectedly flip one of the Fisk or Terrigen 2-point secures, that can be a little bit of a spanner in the works as well for your opponent. So this is a very simple card in the sense that it does what it says, right? You pay this power and you get to steal some VPs from your opponent. I think if we're playing a 1-point secure like your Scoundrels, Riots, Infinity Formula, those kind of secures, I don't think I'm going to bother with this card to basically spend 8 power to gain 1 VP. Although it can be kind of cool at the end of the game where you're trying to do some quick math in your head and you're trying to work out how many points you need to win. That can be a little bit of a cool swing and having a bit of an ace in your back pocket. Yeah, so if we look at this, I'm probably only going to bring this out if we're playing Fisk and Terrigen, and I'll probably definitely bring it out if we're playing Gamma, just to be able to shove it in my opponent's face and say, hey, I've got 3 points in this card unless you do something about it. Probably the cool thing there actually with Terrigen and Fisk is if you want to double this up with World Domination and Inevitable Betrayal, there's actually a lot of points on offer here, because you can do that whole thing we talked about in episode 1 where you're moving your Red Skull up, you're getting an early VP, you're also sharing out a bit of power, so which makes this card a little bit more palatable as well, and also somewhere in that mid to late game you're going to be able to play this and probably cheekily score an extra 2 VP. So getting 3 VP out of tactics card is pretty relevant, I think. But in saying that, it is a pretty straightforward card in the sense that you're playing this, you're flipping a character during the scoring phase. So I don't think there's any point going too much deeper in this. I think that's probably the main bits covered, in the sense that you're probably going to try to save it till the end of the game, in my opinion, as a bit of a swing those last few points you need for a victory. And I'm probably only bringing it out on 3 of the crisis. So that's pretty much Betrayal wrapped up, so we'll get rid of that one. And the other one I wanted to cover really quickly is going to be Sleeper Agent, which I think a lot of people might disagree with me, going, oh, you could have spent 10 minutes on this one, maybe not. I feel like it's a pretty straightforward card, but it has a lot of text going on. So if you run through the terms and conditions of this one real quick, top to bottom, you play this on a non-affiliated Hydra character, and they become a Hydra affiliated character. They also get the Substitute superpower. Also has this term where each time you attack with this character, after the attack is resolved, if the enemy character was not dazed or KO'd, you lose Subterfuge. So if you run through Subterfuge, it's very simply think Mystique, okay? During the character's activation, enemy characters cannot use reactive superpowers, and they cannot play reactive team tactics cards. So functionally, pick a character who's not Hydra, and they have Mystique-esque powers. So I think it's pretty well documented the best use cases of these. It's things like basically anything with a size 4 throw, or even a size 3 throw, I guess. It turns Brace off. You don't even have the option to play Brace. The other thing you can consider is characters who can one-shot other characters somewhat reliably. Just because you don't want to do your first attack, have it absolutely flub, and then lose Subterfuge. So if your intention is to do damage with your Sleeper Agent, I think you do want to throw, because you want to be able to throw terrain or a character at someone, soften them up, and then do your attack, which hopefully only needs 1 or 2 damage to get the daze or KO, and that way you're not losing Subterfuge. And they can't play those reactive defensive tactics cards, which a lot of people are bringing their list these days for, I don't know, things like Malekith, who might be an absolutely perfect character for this this Sleeper Agent. That being said, Malekith is a little bit awkward with his attack, because if he doesn't get that early daze or KO on his charge attack, which he's probably going to be wanting to use all the time, he's going to lose Subterfuge very quickly, unfortunately. So he's probably going to want to go into characters that have already been softened up by, say, a range 4 Zola shot, or maybe a couple attacks from Red Skull, and then you send in Malekith to finish it off, get the KO or the daze, get some power, not be able, have your opponent not be able to play their sacrifices or their fallbacks, or just the general Malekith counters. The other part of it, though, is they do count as Hydra affiliated, which means they can be affected by all the other Hydra cards that we've spoken about. So even that last one, Inevitable Betrayal, it means, just taking Malekith for example, he often has a lot of power, so he could late in the game, pay for the Inevitable Betrayal as well. The other good one that's been spoken about is Hulk, who obviously has the throw online, which is pretty good. So he's able to throw a size up to 4 piece of terrain or a character into someone, and then do his basic 7-dice strike. It's not too bad when you consider they can't use Brace, and they can't use their bodyguards or other sort of reactives against him. I think it's pretty self-explanatory how good that superpower is, just because I think a lot of us these days have played against Mystique and have found how annoying it is. Even when she's just doing her little pitty-patter rapid-fire shots, it's still annoying not being able to bodyguard or do your defensive abilities or reactive superpowers to be able to stop any of it. So obviously, if you stack up the threat of that character that's going to be played on, like a Malekith or a Hulk, it's definitely going to feel good as the Hydra player to be able to have this on your characters, especially probably in this meta, specifically in this meta as well, where I think a lot of, I'm going to say, competitive players are teching a lot of, they're packing a lot of defensive tech in their lists to be able to deal with, say, the Malekith meta, or the big boy meta in general, actually. So a lot of people are packing those escort to safeties, the Gwen lifesaver, all of these things. People are packing into their list to be able to not take that big punch. So I do think this tactics card is pretty cool and effective, but I do think it's pretty straightforward in the sense that you just pick a character who's not going to want to deal with some defensive tactics cards and slap this on them. Personally, I haven't seen any groundbreaking tech where it's going to be absolutely amazing. I'm, I guess, a bit of a dum-dum in that kind of context. I just think not being able to brace throws is good, so put it on someone who throws a lot. So bring in the Hulk and put a Hydra stamp on him. If you've got any cool ideas, I'd love to hear them. Chuck them in the comments below. Oh, down here. or whatever these YouTubers do these days. I would love to hear about them, because at the minute I'm kind of stumped as to if I would even take this card. So if we kind of fast forward a little bit, I do think this card it's cool, but I don't think I'm going to be playing it in my list unless I have an absolute specific plan, and I know that if I put Sleeper Agent and Subterfuge on a certain model, you're just going to totally F people up. I haven't found the character that happens with just yet, but I'm willing to experiment and try and find out if there is one. So that wraps up those two cards. They're very interesting, but I think they're also pretty straightforward, so I don't think they needed that full 10-minute slot to talk about. So I'll be back next time with just wrapping up the last two tactic cards, and then we'll see where we go from there. So cheers, everyone.